Today I'm going to discuss everything you need to know to publish a book on Amazon in 2021 to make more money through sales and to grow your audience. I want to start out by saying this is not a tutorial. There are plenty of videos out there that give you a step-by-step walkthrough of how to physically put a book onto Amazon KDP. This video is more about making a plan to success, getting your books in front of the most people possible, and having longevity in your career. Even if you're planning to go wide, the steps taken in this video can still assist you. However, if you are looking at going wide, I'd recommend checking out my Going Wide video. The old days of simply uploading a book and collecting a paycheck are gone. We are in a pay-to-play market now, which means you have to think strategically. The only way to get around having to pay for advertisements is by having a large audience. So unless you already have that, you're going to want to pay attention. My name's Levi Samuel, and we'll get right into it in just a moment. Alright, so brass tacks. Anybody can publish a book on Amazon. It doesn't cost a single penny. All you need is a KDP account with your bank and tax information, a manuscript, and a cover. With those three things alone, you can physically put a book on Amazon and make yourself a published author. However, it's worth noting that there are roughly 7,500 books published on Amazon KDP per day. That's more than 300 per hour. With so many books being pumped out on a daily basis, it's important now more than ever to make a plan and stand above the rest. I went through my own publishing process and I came up with 25 steps to get your book ready for success. And number one we've already talked about, which is make a plan. To do this, you're going to need to know your audience. You're going to have to identify the ideal reader for your books. You're going to need to know how to target and talk to these people. A message that may work for one particular type of person isn't going to work for every type. Like so many things in this industry, you're going to have to do a bunch of front-loaded work. And that's not really the thing that most people want to hear, which just goes to show that being an author is not the easiest gig out there. By doing this front-loaded work, by making your plan, you're going to have a solid foundation to build upon later. Step 2, you need to identify your genre. Amazon specifically refers to your genre as a category. The first two, when you're going through the uploading process, are pretty broad. Let's say we're going into epic fantasy, it'll check epic fantasy. But there's tons of smaller, more niche categories beyond that. That's really where I think the divide is. I like to think of this as kind of a three-tiered system. Genre being the most broad of them all. That's where you're getting into, fantasy or sci-fi or mystery. The real broad terms, I feel, are the genre. And then I like to go the next step down, which is where you get into your category. For fantasy, for instance, this would be where you divide it between epic fantasy, dark fantasy, urban fantasy, so on and so forth. And you can do that with pretty much every genre. And then, to really target it out, you need to find your niche, which is the specific type of that category that you're looking at. For instance, the Jim Butcher books would be more of an occult fiction type of urban fantasy. So really, that's the way that I like to break it down, and other people have different ways, but that just works for me. I'm thinking of it as a three-tier system. But before you're actually going in to publish your book, you need to make the decision of what genre that you're working in. This is before you've even fully written your manuscript. Your genre is the first thing you need to identify whenever you decide to start the book. The next thing you're going to want to identify is the age or grade that you are reaching, and this goes back into knowing your audience. Know who your story is for. Again, we're not publishing yet. This is the induction of the manuscript itself. This will tell you if you're writing for adults, if you're writing for young adult, if you're aiming for middle grade, if you're aiming, children's book. If you're not real sure what these different terms mean, I would recommend look it up. I may do a video on that at a later time, but I know there are videos out there that already talk on this topic. So knowing your grade and age that you're aiming for is going to help you solidify the genre you're working in. And that's where step 4 comes in, which is writing your final draft. Once you've got your audience and your genre figured out, you'll need to go in and write the actual manuscript. And you'll go through it as many times as you need to go through it. You want to get to your final draft when you've got everything as good as it can possibly be. And all of this is in preparation, which brings us into stage 5, which is hiring an editor. This is one of the areas where if you can spend money, you're going to want to. It is worth hiring a good editor. You want to find one that works in your genre. And whether it be line editing or content editing, or on average, you're going to pay roughly 1 to 3 cents per word of your book, which can add up quite a bit. If you're running a 60,000 word book, that's like $1,800. A lot of editors aren't going to be that high, but some of the prices I've seen are in that range or sometimes higher. So just shop around and see what you can do to get a good editor. Step 6 goes into the metadata on the book, is your authors and contributors. This is obviously you who wrote the book. If you've got somebody who's writing a foreword for it, then you can attribute them. You can attribute your cover artist. Anybody who really helps you with the book, you can attribute them. You don't usually have to as far as on the product page, which usually just means you'll leave the contributors blank. But a lot of times on your copyright page inside the manuscript itself, you will identify these people if you don't do it as a full contribution. Step 7 is your title. Check out my video about creating awesome titles. It will give you everything you need to know in that regard. And that's also going to bring you into subtitles, which are more important for nonfiction. But you also want to consider your keywords when it comes to your title as well. If you can, try to get the SEO rolling as well as possible. Step 8, your keywords. Again, SEO. If you know what your keywords are, they're going to help you when it comes to your description, for targeting your audience, for getting the right people in front of your book. Keywords, in my opinion, they really should be called search words because they are the words that somebody types into the search bar in order to populate a list. Whenever I'm doing keyword research, it generally takes me the better part of a day just to come up with the minimum 7 required for a book. There are ways and programs to help you identify good ranking keywords. The one that I personally use is called Publisher Rocket, formerly KDP Rocket. It allows me to type in the keywords. It tells me how many times those words are being searched each month. It gives me an estimate of how much money those particular keywords are making. It tells me who is using those keywords or how many people are using them. And really, it just helps me decide what keywords to use. And that's not to say that this program takes all of the legwork out. You're going to spend some time doing keywords, even with a program. And all the program really does is help you validate what keywords are worth using. Step 9, description. I've got a video about descriptions, so be sure to check that one out. I will link it down below as well as put the little card up top there. In the KDP dashboard in your description, it does support HTML, but I've seen a lot of problems where the conversion of what is put in that little bar doesn't show up properly on the product page. As a little side note here, it is highly recommended, since you already have an Amazon account, log into Amazon's Author Central and you can edit and validate your description once the book's been published. Just go in there, claim your account, claim your book, and go in there and just make sure that it's the way that it needs to be. And that's really going to help you more than just relying on what the HTML is doing. Step 10, bleed and trim. These are specific to your print book or your paperback book. Paperback's all Amazon KDP offers at this point in time. The trim is effectively what size your book is. I like to do, for anything that's 80,000 words or more, I tend to make those as a 6x9. For anything less than 80,000 words, I tend to do it as a 5x8. And that's more just for the end result of the finished book. There's a little bit of psychology to it. People were a little leery about taking a really thick book from somebody that they didn't know. If the book was super long and it was an unknown author, at least to them, they were less likely to buy the book. Now, if you had a book that was 3/8 inch thick, all the way up to 3/4 inch thick, you could sell those pretty frequent. It's long enough for them to get their values worth, but it's short enough to keep from intimidating them. And that's just something to think about when it comes to print book. On the flip side of that, whenever you're going ebook, the price is usually cheaper for an ebook, and people are going to want longer books there. It's kind of a fine line to play. We're in such a fast-paced market that everybody thinks quicker is better, so therefore the market has shifted to a lot shorter books. It's really just a decision you're going to have to make. And then as far as the bleed, that just basically means if you have images and stuff, how close to the edge of the margin that's going to be. Step 11, formatting. You're going to have to do 2 different formats. One if you're doing your print book, one if you're doing your ebook. With the ebook, specifically Kindle, since we're dealing with Amazon, your formatting is going to be adjustable. You just keep that in mind. You can hire formatters if you don't know how to do it yourself. There are some videos of how to do it yourself. I don't have one yet, but maybe someday. Your formatting is really how the book is going to look as the end result. This is a lot more solidified when it comes to the print book because you're going to be exporting to a PDF, which means things aren't typically going to move. That's more of an issue when it comes to your Kindle book. It's going to convert to Mobi, and things have a tendency to move places and change sizes, especially pictures. For this reason, I like to convert mine to an EPUB, and then I upload the EPUB, and I've just found that an EPUB tends to convert to Mobi better than a doc file does. Step 12, sizing your cover. This is going to be specifically for the print book. I'm not going to discuss a whole lot about how to make a cover. If you want some details on that, I've got a video that you can check out. It also gives you some direction on how to find a cover designer if you don't have one yet. But you're going to want a good cover that's going to attract attention and do its job, which I discuss in that video. A cover size is a variable depending on what trim you selected for the manuscript. Additionally, the number of pages in your manuscript is going to determine the spine width. You're going to have the right size, and if it's off any little bit, Amazon's going to reject it. So really, it's best to get a template. I will link an awesome resource I've found for cover templates. I've found that they're better than the cover templates that Amazon provides. Step 13 is deciding what type of finish you want on your cover. Amazon offers an option between a matte finish or a glossy finish. This is dealer's choice. I've done both. I'm not a big fan of their matte finish, just because when I hold the book, my fingerprints show up on it really bad, and it just doesn't look very pleasant in my opinion. For that reason, I tend to like the glossy finish over the matte, but I think it really depends on what your cover image is as to which finish looks best. Step 14 is your Kindle cover. Now, if you're only doing an ebook, you don't need to worry about the print stuff that I've mentioned earlier on. The most important thing to remember about your ebook cover is it's going to be displayed at a thumbnail size. So you want something that's easily read and people can really tell what's happening, even at just a small little bitty size. Amazon says the best size for covers to work on their devices is 2500 by 1600 pixels. And I typically do those at a 72 DPI just because they're digital, they're not being printed off, so you can get a lower resolution and still have a good turnout. Step 15, paper and ink color. Again, this is only for your print book. Amazon offers two different types of paper. They have a white paper and a cream paper, which are both available for black and white. And then if you're using colored ink, they only allow you to use white paper. Step 16, your ISBN. Almost every publishing site out there has the option of using a free provided ISBN. The publisher listed is going to be whoever that ISBN is from, at least on most sites, and some sites do require you to have your own. The only real advantage you're gaining out of it is where the publisher is listed, you can have your author name or your publishing company listed there instead. I can't speak for the overseas people. I know they have specific rules and places that they can get their ISBNs. In America, the best place to get your ISBNs is directly from Bowker. You're not going to have a lot of additional charges from these third-party sites that are offering them. Everybody's going to get them from there anyway. If you can afford to do it, I would recommend buying them in bulk. You get a lot more value for the money you spend by doing that. Think about it logistically. If you're going to be doing a print book, an ebook, and a hardback, with every format that you're going to do, you're going to need a different ISBN. And this includes audiobooks. For a single book in all the common formats, you're looking at 4 ISBNs right off the bat. The other side of that is the barcode. You honestly don't need to waste your money on a barcode. The only time that I would ever recommend spending money on a barcode is going to be if you do not want the barcode to be in the default location, which with KDP, it is on the back cover in the lower right corner. If you want your barcode in a different location, then sure, buy one. They'll send you a digital image. You can put that image anywhere on the cover you want. And then when it comes time to upload, there's a little checkbox underneath the cover upload area. That little checkbox, you'll click it if you already have a barcode on the cover image. If you don't, then just leave it blank and they will put the barcode where it belongs. Step 17, beta or advanced readers. These are people that have agreed to read your book before it really becomes available to everybody. And you're going to want to find a few of these people. I would recommend 10 to 15. If you can get more, great. understand that a lot of them are not going to do what they agree to do. It's a sad reality, but it is what it is. Try to target people that are legitimately interested in what you are doing. You're going to want these people not only to be your beta readers to tell you what is right or wrong with your book, and really you're just looking for opinions on how it's received. It's no different than a test audience for a film. You want to get opinions as to what to expect from the book, and it tells you how to proceed if you need to change some things, if you need to reorder some stuff, so you can have an educated guess about what's going to happen next. The other thing about these beta readers or advanced readers is these are the people that, whenever the book goes live, are going to drop the first reviews. Getting those reviews out as quick as possible is going to be an extremely important thing. Step 18 is pricing. This is where you're going to really decide how much you want to sell your book for, and understand that, especially on Amazon, there's a few different things to consider. If you have a large audience, and you're not overly worried about trying to get new readers specifically from Amazon, you can pretty much put your book at any price you want without much worry. Amazon has 2 different royalty packages for your ebooks. They offer a 70% royalty, which requires you to put your book between the price of $2.99 and $9.99. The other price is a 35% royalty. That allows you to price your book pretty much anywhere you want. Try to find books that are similar to yours and look at what prices they're ranging. You can always change it later. Then when you're looking at your royalties for your print book, you're looking at 60% minus printing cost. Step 19, KDP Select, otherwise known as Kindle Unlimited. This is a big topic that deserves its own video. I like to think of it as Netflix for books. It is a subscription-based program. People pay a monthly fee and they get access to as many books as they want. Pretty much like going to a library. As an author, you need to decide if KDP Select will work for you. There are pros and cons to using this program. When it comes to KDP Select, really the biggest downside to the program in general is that it requires Amazon exclusivity when it comes to your ebooks. The KDP Select contract is a 3-month commitment. So whenever you sign up to it, you've got a total of 90 days that you will have to remain exclusive to their program before pulling out. That means you can't have your ebooks available on any other site. The exception is you can direct back to the Amazon store. Now, it's also important to note that when you are a part of KDP Select or going wide, you don't want to be jumping back and forth between one and the other. You really need to pick one and stick to it. This is going to make a big difference with your readers, as well as the algorithms working with the store. If your book's being picked up and dropped multiple times, it's going to mess up the algorithms and hurt you in the long run. So really, if you're going to go wide, you need to stay wide, at least with those books. You can always do KDP Select with other books later on. I will say that if you decide to participate in KDP Select, you need to be extremely careful about where your books pop up. I once had an issue, just a few months ago actually. Amazon sent me a nasty letter threatening to ban me from KDP because I was in breach of the Kindle Unlimited contract. And I wasn't real sure what was going on because I was exclusive. I only had 2 books that were still in KU at the time. It confused me because I hadn't put my books up anywhere else. So I started looking and I found the books they were referring to, and they were books that had been pirated onto some site that I'd never heard of before. But because they were showing up there, it was placing me in breach of contract. They gave me like a deadline of like 5 days to get the problem taken care of. And I responded that, I had no control over those books. It really didn't matter. I was against the deadline trying to get it taken care of. Fortunately, I was able to get the site shut down before Amazon came down on me. But it still just goes to show you how careful you have to be and how serious Amazon is about the exclusivity when it comes to KDP Select. Just keep that in mind and make your decisions accordingly. Step 20, Digital Rights Management or DRM. This is supposed to be a security feature to minimize piracy. Unfortunately, this is not one of the things you can change your mind on later. Once you've selected this option, whether it's yes or no, it is a done deal. It cannot be changed. I select no simply for the fact pirates are going to be able to steal the book whether this is engaged or not. So it doesn't do its job in that regard. What it does do, however, is let's say you have a family member that wants to share your book to somebody else. it's going to make it much harder for that person to share the book. So really with that regard, at least if I'm understanding the way that it works properly, it's not really worth it because the people that can get around it are going to be able to anyway, and the people that can't, it's going to hinder their use. So I usually just leave it off, and most of the people that I know do as well. We're nearing the actual point of publishing, which means many of the following steps are going to overlap. Step 21, launch team. This is an extremely important thing that every author genuinely needs. The launch team are the people that help you get your book off the ground. A launch team, which usually consists of the people that have beta read your book, or the advanced readers. By having a good launch team, you can get your book elevated so it can soar, and then it'll start gliding and carrying on its own. Amazon has a glass ceiling for artificial spikes. That means even if your launch team is only 10 people, if your book goes live and you tell these people, okay, now, and all 10 of these people jump on and buy the book immediately, you're going to get what's called an artificial spike. It'll start to climb and then it's going to hit a glass ceiling and it'll stop. Now, the way to get around this is to have a slow, gradual transition. Let's say on day 1, you have 2 people go out and buy the book. And if they've already read it with advanced copy, then they can drop a review right off the bat. Day 2, you have 2 other people go out and buy the book. By doing this, you're going to be raising the levels and getting your sales ranking up into a good visible location. This will carry into step 22, which is your first 30 days. Now, during your first 30 days with a new release, Amazon is going to give you a boost that you will never get again on that book. This is going to allow you the opportunity to, first off, to be on the hot new release list. By having a launch team in place and planning for these first 30 days, you're going to be able to get your book to climb the ranks to where organic viewers can see it, where people will find it, it will become visible, and as people engage with it, Amazon says, well, hey, this book's doing well. They keep boosting it for more people to see it, and this is how you really start to climb the ranks. The object of your first 30 days is to get as much interaction on your book, get it to climb as high in the rankings as possible. If you can glide far enough, you can still cycle those readers and get things coming in well into the time when you bump your next book. And then your next book will start that cycle all over again. So now you've got this one going down, this one coming in, and a lot of times with that second book, it's going to give your first book another rise. So you're going to get that little spike, and if you can keep cycling these with each new release, you're really going to carry on and build your career into the future. But one thing you need to be sure of, and this goes back to your launch team, it's actually step 23, is having qualified purchasers. You are going to want to make sure that the people that you have helping you with this, your launch team, the people that you've got purposefully buying your book, leaving reviews, these people need to be genuinely interested in what you do, what you write. They need to have a verifiable history that they already purchased these types of books. The Amazon algorithm targets and has a buyer profile for every single user on their service. Let's say your Aunt Betsy is heavily into gardening. She buys gardening books. She buys gardening supplies on Amazon. You release a new book, and she is a heavy supporter of what you're doing. Your Aunt Betsy then goes out of her way and buys the book. Because Amazon has a history with her of being a gardening person, when she buys your book, looking at her past history, all this other stuff this lady interacts with is all gardening related. That must mean that this book is also gardening related. So now you have a gardening tag on your epic fantasy book. Amazon will then start showing your epic fantasy book to other buyers who have gardening-based profiles. Because these other people don't give a crap about epic fantasy, they're not going to buy the book. Amazon will then say, well, hey, this book's not doing well to these people. So it's going to be docked points and it's going to be dropped off, and they're going to stop showing it. Now, if you have multiple different people with multiple different interests targeting that book, and those people have nothing at all to do with epic fantasy, the algorithm's going to get confused. And over a little bit of time, that book is going to basically cease to exist. Amazon will bury it so quickly, it won't ever get any sales, it won't ever get any views, and you have effectively killed your book by having the wrong type of people looking at it. So, if you have a launch team, if you have people helping you out, you want to make sure that these people are the right type of people that will be bumping your book up as opposed to pulling it down just due to their buyer profiles. And again, a lot of this stuff at this point is overlapping. You've launched your book. You're trying to get it visible now. You're working on your first 30 days still. Step 24 is your newsletter. Having a newsletter is extremely important, and it's extremely important to have notes for readers to get into your newsletter inside your book. Even if you plan to be exclusive to Amazon, let's say you grow a 6-figure author business on Amazon and everything's going nice and well, and then Amazon decides that you broke one of their rules, so they're kicking you off their system. You can no longer publish your books on Amazon. And because you don't have an email list, you do not have those readers available anymore, which means you're effectively out of business. Now, yes, you could take your business, you could go to these other places, but nobody knows you there. So therefore, you are going to have to basically start from the beginning again. You're going to have to build all of that back up. No matter how much time you put into it, you're going to have to start at the beginning again. If you have a newsletter list you've been building, you have kept in contact with your ideal readers, people that already like and support you. You're probably not going to get everybody, but you will have a substantial larger following that way than you would simply by disappearing and trying to appear somewhere else. The other thing with that is having a newsletter. It's going to help you get a bigger launch. By having your newsletter timed in, let's say you've got your launch team doing their thing, giving their initial bumping up and the boost, and then during that first 30 days your newsletter hits, you're like, hey guys, my new book is out, check it out. Then you have people that are on your list because they like and support you. Well, hey, I want this new book, so then that's going to give you an additional bump in sales, which is going to bump you up even higher on the list to help you glide further. And then step 25, again, still on the first 30 days, this is ads and promotions. This is all the places that you can get your book out and moving. This is BookBub advertisements, Facebook advertisements, Amazon AMS. This is if you're going to do a Goodreads giveaway, which you're going to want to plan out all of this stuff as early as you can. Try to get all of this stuff in the works. Get it verified, figure out if you're going to have to spend money for some of these ads and promotions. Figure out how much money you can spend and where you can spend it. Try to get the dates all set in, get all of these things planned out. Once you've got them planned and you know when they're going to hit on certain days, you can stagger promotions. Your launch team hits it right off the bat. Let's say the first weekend, just as your launch team finishes, your newsletter drops. That's going to give you another bump. Your advertisements started at the same time that your newsletter went out. So you've got about a week for the algorithm to build up and figure out what it's doing. You're going to have your BookBub that's figured out a week after that. You want to try to have as much stuff going and getting your book as much attention as possible during those first 30 days. That way you can glide on into success. That's pretty much all I've got for you guys today. I think I've rambled on long enough. If you got any value out of this video, please give it a like and subscribe, and we'll talk to you guys next time. Have a good one. Bye.